Our world is full of strange unsolved mysteries. Between the natural mysteries of the universe to the more man-made mysteries of the ancient past, there are plenty that have left experts baffled and prompted new research. Number 5. In western Latvia lies a forest that hides a strange unsolved mystery. The Bethonie forest is steeped in history and folklore. There are many strange myths that try to explain the unusual phenomena, but no answer has been confirmed. Dotted throughout the forest are 30 piles of stones and boulders. Many of the boulders are too heavy to be casually carried, and it's clear whoever created these hills of stone did so for a specific reason. What that reason could be is an unsolved mystery with plenty of theories. The stones themselves are said to have mystical properties. Some of the stones are healing and can solve joint problems as well as other illnesses. But visitors are cautioned not to take anything away from the forest. That's because some of the stones hold negative energy. Just handling one can cause sickness or even accidents, and bad luck is said to follow anybody who takes the stones from their spot in the forest. The stones are said to radiate heat. The forest in general is much warmer than the rest of the area, and the weather is always calm, no matter what the conditions are like elsewhere. For many, the rocks are evidence of something much stranger that's happening in the forest. One folklore theory suggests druids and spirits once lived in the area. The forest was naturally a focus of energies that enhanced the powers of these entities. According to folklore, the druids had the power to control the weather, which has had a lasting impact on the forest today. Other stories say that in medieval times, the forest became a place of pilgrimage for peasants. They would bring stones with them and leave them in the forest, representing being cleansed of their sins. While this story seems more likely than the druids and fairies, there's also no evidence to back up this theory. A more mundane answer is that the stones were removed from farmers' fields, though it wouldn't make much sense for them to be brought so deep into the forest. They also might have been stones brought for the building of a castle that was abandoned, but no record of any plans exists. The one thing we know for sure is that these aren't burial sites, as excavations have uncovered no human remains found in the area. There may still be something hidden beneath the stones of this mysterious forest, though. One story states that the stones were piled around a radioactive meteorite. This might explain some of the weird energies described in the area. Besides the strange stones, there are many other unsolved mysteries from the Bethonie forest, which range from strange lights to zones of silence. While there are countless theories, the truth behind the forest's strange energies remains unknown. Number 4. Venice, Italy has a long history of witchcraft, which is said to still be causing mysterious events today. According to one story from the historic city, there's a witch from the 1500s who still makes her presence known, if not for a small alarm clock. Hanging near the rafters of a yellow house is an old-fashioned red alarm clock. It's rusted and weathered by now and isn't much use for waking anybody up, but removing the clock has alarming consequences. The house once belonged to a witch, according to legend. Witches in Venice in the Middle Ages weren't exactly uncommon. Most of the witches were concerned with love potions or concoctions to keep away seductresses. Their customers were mostly other women who would buy potions to win the heart of their beloved or to keep him faithful. Some darker stories include people being cursed for not paying the women a fair price for their products. And one weird tale describes a teleporting boat that transported a group of 7 witches to Alexandria, Egypt, and back in a night. The kind of magic used by the witch isn't known, but she did have customers. The alarm clock that now hangs outside the house is supposed to represent an older clock used by the witch to mark the deadline for her customers to pay her. When the witch passed away, nobody would live in the house that she had once occupied. According to rumors, it was haunted by the woman, and unexplained activity was prevalent. The house remained empty for years until a barber who lived on the street decided to hang the alarm clock outside. The reason why isn't clear, though some sources state he did it to spite another resident. Whatever his reasoning for doing it, something about the alarm clock seemed to have power over the mysterious activity in the house. It stopped and it was deemed livable again. For a while, everything was calm until somebody decided to remove the alarm clock. The unexplained activity then started again. That included strange sounds and apparitions, disappearing objects, and even minor accidents. The mysterious events lasted until a new alarm clock was hung outside the house. The alarm clock that now hangs outside is said to be the third. The second alarm clock was removed for restoration work a few years later. Again, the unexplained activity started again until a clock was put back in its place. The clock hasn't been moved since, and so far it seems to be working at keeping the spirits at bay. Number 3. It seems that every year we learn something new about ancient Egypt. New technology allows us to take a deeper look at some of the unsolved mysteries of the ancient past. But with each discovery, there's always a chance that more undiscovered mysteries are uncovered. This was the case when researchers at Stanford University, using CT imaging, looked at a mummy known as Haddison in 2015. Haddison is likely not the real name of the person whose remains were brought to San Francisco in the late 1800s. Researchers didn't know for certain if the mummy was even a woman, as her sarcophagus depicted. In the early days of Egyptology, it wasn't uncommon for sellers to swap and change mummies and their coffins with little care for preservation. The seller of this mummy likely gave it the name Haddison because it sounded similar to Queen Hatshepsut, for the unknowing buyer to think that they were getting a royal mummy. Before looking at what was hidden beneath her wrappings, experts believed the mummy was likely that of an ordinary woman, as the mummy was quite small and was held in a female sarcophagus. They also believed that she'd been quite well preserved. Her linen wrappings had never been removed, and from the outside she looked to be in perfect condition. That wasn't the case when researchers looked beneath the linen using the CT scan. The unanswered mystery of the mummy's gender couldn't be definitively solved. Many of the bones were out of place or broken, including the pelvis. The head was tilted downwards and to the side, but researchers were pretty sure the mummy was a female. They also determined she was likely in her 50s or 60s when she passed away, and had dental problems. It was when they looked inside the skull that the real mystery of Haddison was uncovered. The mummy's brain was still inside the skull, resting on a pile of sediment at the back of her head. This was something the researchers had seen before. The brain left inside the body wasn't too unusual. Removing the brain wasn't the typical practice until after the 11th century BC. But the sediment inside the head alongside the brain was extremely unusual. Researchers believe that Haddison passed away sometime between the 16th and 11th centuries BC, but at a time when mummification processes were being changed. It seemed like whatever was done to this woman was something uncommon and a practice that didn't catch on. However, not many mummies from this era have been found and preserved, and further research might uncover a different answer to this unsolved mystery. Number 2. At 11:45 a.m. on September 15, 2007, a strange object fell from the sky just outside the small town of Peru. The object would go against our understanding of meteorites and leave behind an unsolved mystery. For dozens of miles around the small village of Caracas, people watched a fireball shoot across the sky. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before and was brighter than the sun. It hit the earth just outside the village, creating shock waves that shattered windows and caused people to fall down. In Puno, the impact registered as a small earthquake, and in Bolivia, equipment designed to spot signs of a nuclear missile launch noted the bright light. It didn't look like anything man-made though, even if it did create a mushroom-shaped cloud over the impact site that hung in the air for minutes. Locals rushed to the impact site and found a crater a meter deep and filled with groundwater. It looked as if the water was boiling, and when they collected bits of debris, they found the rocks were hot to the touch. At the time, nobody was worried about contamination or anything dangerous coming from this strange object from space. Police joined the crowds in collecting fragments of space rocks, but within hours, it looked as if the beginning of a sci-fi horror film had just started. Dozens of people had fallen ill. Some had headaches, others felt nauseous, and some had symptoms that were even worse. The hospitals became filled with people. Even animals that had not interacted with the meteorite had fallen ill. While this mysterious illness was taking hold, scientists and meteorite experts were struck by another strange occurrence. Photos of the meteorite fragments showed that it was a chondrite. Chondrites themselves are pretty common. They're meteorites made up of non-metallic substances which formed early in the solar system's formation. But they're also very fragile and usually break up in the Earth's atmosphere. Those that hit the ground are usually only millimeters across and don't leave a crater. This one was the size of a small dining table and had left a crater that was clear to see. Most who contracted the mysterious illness quickly recovered. The exact cause was never determined. It was believed either sulfur or arsenic that had seeped into the water had become gaseous due to the heat of the impact and had then caused the strange symptoms. It's also believed that mass panic likely contributed to the spread of the illness. The scientific questions have been harder to answer and have left experts scratching their heads. Number 1. The Petrozavodsk phenomenon is one of the weirdest, unexplained mysteries to come from the Soviet Union. Described as a giant purple jellyfish that hovered over the northern Russian city, this UFO has never had a satisfying explanation. The phenomenon was not limited to the town of Petrozavodsk. Starting at about 1 a.m. on September 20th, 1977, people living as far away as Denmark reported strange objects in the night sky. The objects varied from just lights to cylinders, disks, and spheres. The calls were coming in from so many different places in such a short period of time that it seemed impossible that the witnesses were all seeing the same unexplained object. But it wasn't until 3 hours into this strange event that the most famous of the phenomena was spotted. At 4:05 a.m., witnesses in the city of Petrozavodsk described something that had never been seen before. Hovering over the city was an object described as being amethyst in color and shaped like a jellyfish. It had tentacles that reached down to the city, and according to dock workers outside of Petrozavodsk, it dropped thin beams that looked like rain into the city. The UFO stayed there for 12 minutes before disappearing into the sky. According to the dock workers, it moved above the clouds and left behind a burning red hole. The sightings elsewhere in the Soviet Union and Europe lasted throughout the day before the strange objects disappeared as mysteriously as they had arrived. There doesn't seem to have been any illness or destruction caused by the mysterious objects. At first, there was a fear this might have been some kind of attack by the US, but it was soon clear this wasn't the case. Reported sightings came from members of the military, airport staff, policemen, and pilots, as well as ordinary citizens, giving experts reason to believe that something had definitely been spotted in the night sky, in the far north of the world. Interestingly, nothing was spotted on radar, even when the radar operators saw the object with their own eyes. 2 new departments were created to investigate the strange, unexplained phenomena. However, the government then quickly tried to suppress rumors of a UFO. The Petrozavodsk phenomenon was blamed on misidentifying ordinary celestial phenomena, the testing of experimental aircraft, or the launch of a satellite. There was a satellite launched at 1 a.m. on September 20th. In recent years, other Russian satellites have caused strange phenomena, which have been described as jellyfish-like, but none look quite like what was described in Petrozavodsk. The cause of the Petrozavodsk phenomenon remains unknown and will likely never be solved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.